Hi, I'm Dempsey Pulot, and this week I'm reviewing... Now, before I start, I just want to make sure to remind you guys to hit that like button if you like this video, and make sure you hit that subscribe button too. Subscribe if you aren't already. I post new videos like this every week, and I also do the occasional trailer reaction, and I even got some other stuff I like to do occasionally, but you won't know unless you subscribe, so please hit that button for me. Now, before I start this review, I also just want to say a disclaimer. This review will contain some minor spoilers, but don't worry, I will let you know right before I start to, well, spoil it, I guess. So, without further ado, let's jump into Frozen 2. Frozen 2 was directed by Jennifer Lee and Chris Buck, and it is the sequel to the 2013 smash hit phenomenon Frozen. This film sees all of the characters from the original film, such as Anna, Elsa, Olaf, Kristoff, and even Sven return, but this time they have to solve a mystery behind a mystical forest that's rumored to exist right outside their home kingdom of Arendelle. Now, I want to be perfectly clear before I go on. I am not the biggest fan of the first Frozen film. In fact, I think it's very overrated. I was actually going to do a video talking about my thoughts on it, but then I got to thinking and I was like, you know, it'd probably be really pointless and negative and more toxic than anything if I went down that route. But let me explain, okay? The bottom line is that I was the last person on earth that wanted a sequel to that film. But truth be told, I actually enjoyed this film a lot. And the reason why I think I enjoyed this film so much more than the original is because it's way funnier, like really funny. And it's all because of Olaf, okay? In the past 6 years since the last film came out, he's kind of grown to be this fan favorite character, but I think he's kind of gotten that status because he's the adorable sidekick of the franchise. Here, I think he really earns those stripes because of all the humor he brings to the table. There are so many fantastic one-liners and sequences that he gives us that I was really grabbing my side at. Like, I could not stop laughing. And at times, I even felt like a child, okay? Which is never a bad thing. Now, in addition to the humor, I thought, and I know I'm in the minority on this one, but I also thought that the songs were better in this film. Not to say that the music is perfect in this film, because there are some issues that I have with it, but personally, I found myself bumping my head a lot more to the songs here than in the original. Now, as I was saying before, there are some songs that feel out of place and very reaching, in particular Olaf's song. I know I just said that he steals the show, but the song that they give him is just weird. It's about growing up. And I see what they were trying to do with it, but I don't know, maybe he wasn't the right one to sing it. Maybe if somebody else was singing it, I might have felt a little bit differently. But you know, there were some real bangers that I enjoyed, okay? The main one, Into the Unknown, that's being pushed, it'll probably win the Academy Award for Best Original Song. And also, Kristoff's song. We have not heard Kristoff sing a solo just yet, and here he has probably one of my favorite songs throughout the film. It's called Lost in the Woods, and it is a 90s inspired pop culture boy band ballad. And if that description isn't enough to sell you to the movie, if you haven't seen it already, then I don't know what to tell you. It is fantastic. Overall, it is just so much more laid back than the original. It's much less dramatic, and I would even argue that there are little to no stakes. I mean, there are stakes, but at the same time, there really aren't. Despite all that, though, in my opinion, it is still a pretty decent story. And before I continue any further, I just want to say that now I'll be talking spoilers, so if you haven't seen the film yet and you want to stop this review, I'll put a timestamp up so you can skip to my rating. And if you do like spoilers, what's wrong with you? But you know what? I digress. Let's jump right into them. First and foremost, this film has no antagonist, and I know not a lot of people would consider that to be a spoiler, but I do. Especially with these Disney movies. I mean, in Disney movies, I mean, we come to them for the big old baddies, right? Some of them are so iconic, like Cruella de Vil or Scar, right? In the animated films especially, that's what we look forward to. That's what we expect. And, you know, it's kind of cool that they didn't go that route. This story is much more of a story of self-discovery. It's an adventure. But the gang does still face obstacles, don't get me wrong. The biggest obstacle being the truth. Over the course of the film, Elsa and Anna are faced with several major questions. Like I said, the biggest one, the driving force of the entire plot, is there a mystical forest? And once they figure out that there is, they're faced with even more questions. They have to figure out what really happened to their parents. Well, they don't have to figure out, but they eventually do figure out after learning that they may or may not have really died on that ship. They did. Okay, I said spoilers. And also, the biggest question that's also posed in this film is, where did Elsa's powers come from? And once again, not to say that that approach is bad, it was just different, very unexpected. Now, if you really want to talk about cons, I will say that my biggest con in this movie is the fact that there were just so many characters. Even, I think the fact that all of the 5 main characters from the first one appear in this movie, I think that's too much. In the very beginning of the movie, actually, Elsa volunteers to go into the mystical forest to just search for it on her own. And she eventually even does search for it on her own, which kind of defeats the purpose of everybody coming with her in the first place. But yeah, it makes no sense for all of them to be there. I felt like even if it was just Elsa and Anna, it would have made a little bit more sense. But you know, that's the story. You know, you have to bring all these characters along. So you know what? I let it go. I let it go, right? But eventually there's not enough for any of them to do. I mean, Olaf goes away, okay? For those of you guys who saw the movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And Kristoff, I mentioned his song is called Lost in the Woods, and that's because he's talking about where he's at in his relationship with Anna in the song, but he literally gets lost in the woods, and we don't see him for like a third of the movie. I'm not even kidding. So I don't know, it's like they knew that there was too many characters, and they even add additional characters in this film, and you know, that kind of threw me off, because I was like, oh, one of these guys has to be the bad guy, before I eventually realized that there just was no bad guy, as I said before. But there's no denying that there were absolutely way too many people in this film, and I know that the whole thing with sequels is that it's okay to add additional characters, but here, I think they might have overdone it. Now, I know I already said that I liked this film, and I did. But in terms of sequels, okay, you gotta be realistic. It's not The Godfather 2. It's not The Empire Strikes Back, okay? It is a good sequel, but it doesn't do for its predecessor what those films did for their predecessors, if that makes sense. And I don't know, as much as I hate to admit it, I think it is going to be a film that time isn't too kind to, and what I mean by that is that as time goes on, I think the first one will be revered as the better of the two. I mean, you can't take away how different it was for its time, or what it did, or how much of a pop culture phenomenon it was, right? That'll always be there. But once again, I'm not trying to knock this film in any way, shape, or form, okay? One thing that I really do appreciate, and one thing I think that this film deserves praise for, is the fact that it's able to build upon a world that wasn't original in the first place, right? Like, the original source material is taken from a fairy tale, and this film takes all that, and it makes it its own. And at the same time, while it does build upon that, and it introduces us to all these new characters and new ideas, it doesn't feel like a cash grab. And that's particularly surprising considering who the parent company is. This is a rare Disney sequel, because we've seen so many at this point, but not all of them care about where the characters are going, quite like this one does. And I know I said it already before, and you know, I can't deny saying it anymore, but this film made me care about where those characters are going too. And for that, I'm going to give Frozen 2 3.5 stars.
Nice.
Guys, as always, thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to view this video. It really does mean the world to me. And if you like this video, as I mentioned before, make sure you please hit that like button and subscribe for more awesome weekly content like this. Now, if you happen to see this movie, if you liked it or you hated it, let's talk about it in the comment section below. Maybe you can convince me to like the first one. I don't know. We'll just have to see. But I look forward to hearing what any and all of you guys will have to say. But yeah, that's pretty much all the time that I have for today. I have a lot more stuff to get to work on. So until next time, I'm Dempsey Pallad. Take care.